Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Season 2 of How Can It Be with Allie Johnson and
Kara Johnson.
just kind of welcome, you guys. Anything you want to say?
Not really.
Good.
I mean, yes, lots.
No, for sure. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're new here, this podcast is all about glorifying God in the everyday good, the bad, and the in-between. And we start out every episode the same way, generally. Just by talking about a little way that we've seen Christ in our life the last week or so. And Kara gets to start.
All right. For the background of my story of the week.
Oh, background. We always need it. That's the truth.
Yep. I have a best friend. Her name's Maddie. And this week she was applying to the advertising program. And it took over her whole entire life. We barely saw her. So naturally, the only times we saw her, it was like high stress levels, lots of things going on, right? So by the end of the week, I got into a fight with her. It was super unfortunate.
Cheers.
It was super unfortunate. We healthily figured it out. Everything was fine. Her application was due Friday night at midnight. She started uploading it at 11:30, and it was like huge files and stuff like that. Just didn't get it submitted in time after spending the whole entire week working on it, right? So it was like something that was super unfortunate. Everyone was upset about it. We're all like in the apartment like,
yeah,
this is not great. Anyways, I've been praying for her. She had sent an email to like the admissions people because she had it done. It just wasn't uploading in time. She had been working on it for 30 minutes trying to upload it. It wasn't uploading. She had emailed it to them. Anyways, hadn't heard back for days. Today, she tells me after school, she's like, I went and talked to a guy that does the admissions, and he reopened it for me to submit it today.
Oh.
Guys, I actually started crying. I like had like a tear fall in my eye. I was like, oh, I'm so feeling so emotional about this.
A tear fell in your eye?
So a tear, cute. Yeah. A tear like fell out of my eye.
There you go.
Yeah. And I was like, I looked at her and I was like, sorry, I have to go to my room really quick. I'm going to go say a gratitude prayer. Left her, said a prayer, was like crying in my prayer. I was like, God, thank you so much for helping my friend. This means so much to her. And she just got a second chance. And sometimes there's a bunch of rules in our lives. Sometimes there's things and like, sometimes we just don't get exceptions. Like we miss the deadline and you just miss the deadline.
Yeah.
But other times the mercy comes in where they're like, we understand your situation and we're going to give you the second chance.
Yeah.
And so I was like saying this prayer of gratitude and I was like grateful for this situation, but I was also like, I'm just so grateful for my Savior who lets me have second chances and for his mercy and his love when I fall short sometimes, when I'm 2 minutes late for the deadline.
Yeah.
And that he just lets me have another chance, lets me have another opportunity. And so that was something really sweet. And then at that same minute, right after, I get an email saying that the parking ticket that I got for $55, which, by the way, did I tell you about that?
Nope.
Yeah. I appealed it, and they changed it to a warning. So I'm just thinking about, like, the blessings that were raining in and, like, you know, just, like, God's real, and I was feeling pretty grateful about that.
I'm feeling pretty grateful about both of those, and wow.
Yeah.
What a week.
That was today.
Seriously.
Also. Crazy.
Today. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah.
That is craziness.
So.
Ugh. Yeah.
Gratitude.
Prayers.
Mercy.
Also, proud of
Jesus.
you for immediately going and saying a prayer of gratitude.
That honestly doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
More times doesn't than does.
Yeah.
But
that's so good to practice that, though.
Yeah.
It's so good to have an attitude of gratitude. Oh, yeah.
Attitude of gratitude.
Get it. Sometimes.
Anyways, that's mine.
Okay. Here's my Jesus moment, you guys. I was thinking about if I was going to do this one or not. It's just really kind of long, but like, I just keep thinking it's like really all that I can do. So like kind of buckle up, get comfy. I forgot about this and I found it a few days ago. And I just think probably it's
You must
awesome.
read it to us.
So I'll be reading it.
Great.
Okay, let's get into it. There's this story of a man who got his prized possession stolen. It was a tiny little watch that had been passed down generation to generation. And the thing is, this man had a lot of nice things. He had acquired many other items that maybe looked to the outside eye or even a professional appraiser to be more precious than this tiny watch. But to him, this one watch was one of the highest value. The story goes like this. There wasn't a moment after this watch was stolen that he didn't look for it. There wasn't a minute after this watch was stolen that he didn't worry about where the watch had wound up. And one day, this man went to a pawn shop and asked his, by now, well-rehearsed question to the man working the counter. I was wondering if maybe you've seen something that looks like this, he asked. And he gently unfolded a perfectly folded picture of his prized possession, this tiny little watch. And as he slid the picture towards the pawnbroker, he said, listen, it might not look like much, but it's just my very favorite one, and I've been looking everywhere for it. Imagine the man's surprise when the pawnbroker said, well, this was dropped off here yesterday, and slid a small, weathered watch across the counter to him. Tears immediately streamed down the man's face as he picked the watch up and held it in his hands. Oh boy, I've been looking everywhere for this, he said. And the thing is, the pawnbroker was happy for the man, but he still had a job to do. So he asked, okay, how much are you willing to pay for it? And without hesitation, the man replied, anything you want. No questions asked. This watch was priceless to him. And the thing is, it already belonged to him, but he paid anyways. And he would have paid more for something like that. He would have done anything to leave that store with an empty wallet and that tiny watch in his hand. It seems crazy to me that stories like that exist, that people will go to those kinds of lengths for something so small. But I guess there's more stories like that than I think, because I forget there's one of those stories about me. Because you see, there's this man that currently lives in heaven, that gave his all for me on a cross one day. That day, I became a prized possession. And it makes me think that maybe that story with the man and the watch is a little less crazy than I originally thought. Because my story keeps going, and I start making all these choices, and somehow we get to the part when I run away, when I end up in the wrong part of life, when I end up in the wrong hands, and when I think no one could ever want me again, and maybe all I am is a worthless girl. That's the part when that guy in heaven comes running and says loud enough for everyone to hear, I was wondering if you've seen a girl that looks like this? As he tenderly unfolds a perfectly folded picture of a girl named me and slides it across the counter. Can't you just hear him say, listen, she might not look like much, but she is just my very favorite one, and I've been looking everywhere for her. And isn't it wild to picture me saying, who? Me? And peeking out of my preferred corner of darkness to see my Savior standing there and watch tears roll down his cheeks the moment he sees me. Oh, girl, I've been looking everywhere for you, he says. And with his scarred hands, he pulls out his wallet, ready to meet whatever bail he might be faced with, prepared to do anything to get me back. And the thing is, he shouldn't have to pay for something that was already his. Did he forget that one day on the cross? Did he forget what he already paid? It would make sense to me if there was nothing else he could do for me, no more he could pay. I don't deserve to belong to a guy like him in the first place, so I understand if I messed it all up too much this time. It's like I can hear the world say, how much are you willing to pay for her? And I think to myself, it's okay, I earned this. And without hesitation, he says, anything you want. No questions asked. This girl, me, is priceless to him. And even though his hands were proof already that I belonged to him, proof that he had already paid enough, he paid anyways. And he would have paid more for something like that, for someone like me, for someone like you. He would have done anything to leave with an empty wallet and my imperfect hand in his. And really, I'm just so grateful that I don't get what I earn in this life. And I don't know why he gives it, and I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it. So in the meantime, I'll just say thanks. And I just feel like
That is so sweet.
That describes a little bit of how I feel about grace.
Yeah.
And how I feel about, honestly, like, this whole life. Because what an experience that we're placed in every single day to be able to put to test the fact that somebody loved us enough to pay the price to save us and to pay again.
Yeah.
To save us when we need saving for the second time. And I think it's kind of exactly like what your Jesus story was too.
Yeah, I love that analogy also, just thinking about the fact that he's like willing to pay the owner of the watch.
Mm-hmm.
He's willing to pay anything because he wants his watch back, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Jesus is willing to pay anything just for us, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he already gave his life.
Yeah.
That's in and of itself, like, shows us how much he's willing to pay for us.
Yeah.
He loves us so much. We are his prized possessions.
Yeah.
And that is so sweet.
Yeah. It's really so sweet.
Yeah.
And I just think, like, it's so cool that this season we're going through and we're, like, that we're really focusing in on stories from Christ's ministry, because we get to see proof of him showing all of his children and us just how prized we are to him and just how precious we are to him. And I think it's so awesome that we get to see that, like, no matter the exact circumstances of the stories that we're reading, like, we get to see proof of just how much he loves his children. And there's no better way to segue into that than to just say
that we should read the Jesus moment.
Yep,
or
that's it.
Yeah, okay,
That's
great.
literally
Also, me saying Jesus moment when I meant story from Jesus' ministry.
It is another moment for Jesus.
So true.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so the story that we're reading this week is in Mark 2. And this is a story of another person who was needing to be healed by Jesus. And let's just get into it.
Yeah, I'm fine. Let's do it.
Let's read it.
Okay.
Do you want to start, or shall I?
You shall.
Okay. I shall. And again he entered into Capernaum after some days, and it was noised that he was in the house.
And straightway many were gathered together, insomuch that there was no room to receive them, no, not so much as about the door. And he preached the word unto them.
And they come unto him, bringing one sick of the palsy, which was borne of 4.
And when they could not come nigh unto him for the press, they uncovered the roof where he was, and when they had broken it up, they let down the bed wherein the sick of the palsy lay.
When Jesus saw their faith, he said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, thy sins be forgiven thee.
But there were certain of the scribes sitting there and reasoning in their hearts,
Why doth this man thus speak blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God only?
And immediately when Jesus perceived in his spirit that they so reasoned within themselves, he said unto them, Why reason ye these things in your hearts?
Whether is it easier? Oh, sorry. Restarting that. Whether is it easier to say to the sick of the palsy, Thy sins be forgiven thee, or to say, Arise, and take up thy bed and walk?
But that ye may know that the Son of Man hath power on earth to forgive sins, he saith to the sick of the palsy,
I say unto thee, Arise, and take up thy bed, and go thy way into thine house.
And immediately he arose, took up the bed, and went forth before them all, insomuch that they were all amazed, and glorified God, saying, We never saw it on this fashion.
Okay, let's dissect this.
Freaking awesome, first of all. Also, did we, go into specifics that was verses 1 through 12?
I don't think we did. Guys,
okay.
That was Mark
2, 1 through 12. And did we say what the story was about before we started reading it?
I said it was about someone that was getting healed, but I left it up to everyone else to hear it first.
And cheers. It's about a man who was sick of palsy, which means he just couldn't walk his whole life, essentially. Yeah. Or not his whole life, but maybe he just
Well, I think it's his whole life. It says he was born of 4.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm guessing that means he was born like he couldn't walk.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Okay.
I'd say. Probably. Word.
Yeah, so he's born with this condition and he can't walk. And this is the story of how his friends brought him to Christ and wanted him to be able to be healed by this man.
Yeah. Okay, so it says that there's so many people that are gathered together that his friends couldn't bring him to Jesus because he was on a bed, he couldn't walk. They're trying to carry a bed through a multitude of people. Yeah. Kind of hard.
Also, pause really quick, because how awesome is it that in verse 1 it says, Christ was in the house. Verse 2, immediately it says, straightway, many were gathered together, insomuch that there was no room to receive them.
Yeah.
So don't worry, all we need is one verse for this whole entire house to be packed to the brim, all the way, not so much about the door.
Yeah.
And he preached the word unto them, unto all of them. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So anyways, these people couldn't get to him, but they were like, we must.
Yeah.
So they go through the roof and they lower down their friend. And I think it's interesting because Jesus could have been like, you just wrecked the roof of the house.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
It's not his house either.
Yeah.
It's somebody who's like hosting him.
So he's like, literally, what are you doing? But instead, it says that Jesus saw their faith.
Yeah.
And he said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, thy sins be forgiven thee. And I think it's just so sweet how he addresses him. He's just like, I love you. I can see your faith. I know you need to be healed. But then, so interesting that the first thing that he says to him, he doesn't heal him right away of palsy. Yeah. First he says, thy sins be forgiven thee. And so it's like, not only was this guy sick with the palsy, can't move, but he, like everyone else, was not a perfect person and was also having need to be healed spiritually.
Yeah.
And that Jesus first did that and then...
And I love that he heals him spiritually first.
Yeah, me too.
It's almost like Christ is like, yes, we want your legs to work, but like, let's get your heart in shape first. Mm-hmm. And I think that is so awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Anyways, then we see that there were people there. Who were they? The Pharisees or something? Or yeah,
yeah. The scribes.
Scribes. They were scribes, and they are questioning Jesus because
the scribes are meant to be the people who are most educated on matters exactly like this, and so they're saying, "Who can forgive sins but God only?"
Yeah. So it's like, even though we all know that Jesus can heal all these people, he's been healing people, here they are, they see him, and they see that he says, thy sins be forgiven thee, and they're instantly like, hold up. Mm-hmm. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And Jesus spits bars. He's like, what is it easier to do? Forgive someone of their sins or heal them of sicknesses?
He said, let me do both.
Then goes ahead and does it.
Yeah. And yeah. But I do think it's so awesome too that he says, like, it's not like he's like, well, let's do it both. He says, but that ye may know that the Son of Man hath power on earth to forgive sins. And then immediately after, it's almost like him saying, like, here is proof that, like, if I can heal his ability to walk, then this is proof that his sins must be forgiven too.
Yeah.
So that's what's kind of cool, because if he would have switched up the order, then it's like, okay, like, whatever, the miracle's already been done. Yeah. But how awesome is it that he starts out with matters of the heart?
Yeah.
And truly, then everybody's left in awe.
Everyone's like, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Also, I think it's kind of interesting that Jesus refers to himself as Son of Man, because he's also the Son of God, the only begotten of the Father, but he refers to himself as Son of Man. I kind of feel like it's like a way that he's like, I'm like you guys, I'm here, like, I'm tangible, I have flesh, I'm Son of Man, I was born from a woman, you know what I mean? He's like, I am a man, but I have power here on this earth.
Yeah.
And he's like relating to us in that way where he's like, I'm Son of Man, just like you guys are. But then he's also like, but like, take
note.
Take note.
Yeah.
Not sure what I was trying to say there, but
hard to know.
So hard to know. But just like, look at what I'm able to do right now.
Yeah.
Through the power I've received from the Father.
No, I think that that's so beautiful. And I think it's so awesome too that like that he, I think, is the one that calls himself Son of Man the most.
Yeah.
In a way that's almost like not even necessarily that he's of man, but also it's almost in its own way saying like son for man. Like he's the son that was brought here for men, you know?
Yeah.
And for women and for all of God's children. He's the son that was brought here for us. And so it's kind of cool to know that like of and for can maybe even be the same in this situation too, which is so sweet.
Yeah.
He was brought here for us and we're made in his image.
Yeah.
And
I was reading something about like Greek and Hebrew translations of the scriptures.
So
I'm not going to pretend like I'm some scholar that knows all of these things because I just really don't.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm forgetting everything that I had read, but it was something like the people in that time referred to people as Son of Man when they're just like, oh yeah, that Son of Man. Oh yeah, that Son of Man. Oh yeah, that Son of Man.
Yeah.
But then it like gets
or
to
maybe
a point
even
in the
like
scriptures
that son of
where it gets to the point where
so-and-so's
he's
name.
like, so it's like, oh yeah, that guy, that
Yeah.
guy, that guy. But then it changes to the point where it's like the Son of Man, and it's
Yeah.
like the guy. Like this is the guy.
Mm.
That is the man that you want to heal you.
Yeah.
And it's just true. He is the guy. So like that's like something about like the translation of something or something, you know?
Yeah. Or maybe that's just like something you made up. Good
Could
point,
also
though.
be, you know? But anyways,
So
I
true.
like that. He's the guy.
And same.
And that's true. Anyways, the very last verse here. Should we talk about that one?
Yeah, it's fire.
Because we see that he arose after
Immediately.
after
also.
not being able to walk for his whole life.
Uh-huh.
Immediately arises, takes his bed that he was on. He's like, all right, here I'm leaving. And then it says that they were all amazed and glorified God, saying, we never saw it on this fashion.
Yeah.
They're like, we've never seen something this cool before, ever.
Yeah.
Like, look at what just happened. Glorify God.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what we always need to do. When something crazy happens, give all the glory to God.
Yeah. So fire.
Attitude of gratitude.
Attitude of gratitude, y'all. Man. And what's awesome too is that like I just imagine like what it must have been like for this guy as he walked out through the multitudes of people here. Like if he stood up and he left, he surely was crowded by hundreds of people. And as he walks every single step, like regardless of even if he spoke or not, every step he took was him glorifying Christ because he was proof of the miracle that Christ had just performed within him. And I think it's cool for us to remember that like anytime we have the opportunity to come to know Christ better is just another it's another opportunity for us to testify of him.
Mm-hmm.
Because every time we receive the saving powers of his grace, every time we repent, every time we decide we're going to do better, we are proof to somebody else that they can too.
Yeah.
Because of what he did for all of us.
And even when there are crazy obstacles in our path, like millions of people in the multitude, we can still reach Jesus. There's always a way.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are people in our lives that are like this guy's friends that help us get to Jesus, that are those stepping stones for us.
Mm-hmm.
But that Jesus will always accept us with open arms and will always be willing to help us spiritually and physically because he loves us. And I kind of feel like that's kind of a reason why we should make Christ an everyday topic.
Wait, that's so crazy. Because I was thinking the same thing.
I'm thinking he's pretty much a cool guy.
Yeah, I would say like he might just be the guy.
The guy.
He might just be the man.
He is.
What's that song? I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man. Yes, I am.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man. Anybody?
There's also a song by Taylor Swift that's called The Man.
Yeah, I
Isn't
feel like
it?
it's like not as applicable as that one that I just said. But
No problem. You're so right.
you know,
Yep.
like
You
let's
couldn't-
see if I can find it in 3 seconds.
You couldn't have been more true about that, but let's just talk about the fact that
It's this. This is our outro this episode, so get excited.
Everybody, go ahead and tell everybody. He's the man. He's the man. He's the man. Go and tell everybody. He's the man.
Thank you. See you next week. We love you.
He
loves you more. Bye.